N1GMB listening on the W2YMM repeater. It is.
Welcome to the Newsline server. This week's Newsline report will begin in 10 seconds and pause periodically.
The following is a QST. Ukraine bans ham radio before Russian invasion. An amateur in Pennsylvania faces criminal charges. And a historic Marconi hut goes digital in England. All this and more as Amateur Radio Newsline report number 2313 comes your way right now.
From around the world, this is Newsline, Amateur Radio's independent, on-the-air news and bulletin service. Now, reporting from Union, Kentucky, here's Neil Rapp, WB9VPG.
A decree by Ukrainian officials imposing a state of emergency, including a ban on amateur radio operation, took effect on Thursday, February 24th. Officials had announced the previous day that they would do so in anticipation of a Russian military invasion. The decree can last as long as 30 days, with an option to be extended. The International Amateur Radio Union was monitoring the events. Greg Mossop, G0DUB, IARU Region 1's Emergency Communications Coordinator, told Newsline in an email, quote, "The events in Ukraine are obviously fast-moving, and although there were early reports of telecommunications failures, it appears these may have been due to the volume of calls on the networks. Webcams in the area are functioning, and people do seem to be able to make calls. Sadly, the Ukrainian National Society has reported that a ban on the operation of amateur stations in Ukraine has been put in place for 30 days commencing February 24th. IARU Region 1 and its member societies are monitoring the situation closely, but remind all amateur radio operators that they must follow their national laws and regulations," end quote. The U.S. news website Politico quoted Alexei Danilov, Secretary of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, describing the actions as, quote, preventative measures to keep calm in the country, end quote. The declaration is not in effect in the political subdivisions of Eastern Donetsk and Luhansk. In the United States, a ham faces serious criminal charges for on-the-air activities. Cell MB KB3 TZD has that story.
An amateur radio operator in Erie, Pennsylvania has been charged with transmitting false weather emergencies on the radio and making bomb threats, according to published reports. The Erie Times News identified the ham as Richard L. Wagner, whose call sign is listed as N3BWG on QRZ.com. The newspaper said that Erie County detectives charged him with reporting bogus weather emergencies while on the air and with making threats against other hams who told him to stop. The news report said that a criminal complaint was filed on Monday, February 14th, alleging that between the 19th of December and February 13th, he went on air with threats to bomb public buildings, including the city police station and the county courthouse. There were no details about any involvement in the case by the U.S. Federal Communications Commission. A preliminary hearing is scheduled for March 3rd.
The largest United States county east of the Mississippi River is about to get its first digital amateur radio emergency service to be affiliated with the county. Jim Dameron, N8 TMW, has that story.
There's a lot of ground to cover in Aroostook County, Maine, which at more than 6,600 square miles has a lot going on when disaster strikes. A group of amateur radio operators calling themselves the Caribou Emergency Amateur Radio Service are now working to establish formal emergency communication structure in that rural county with D-Star. The idea is to connect hams with one another as well as local and state agencies using that digital voice mode. Emergency response is already provided from the Aroostook Amateur Radio Association and ARIES, but Caribou's response will primarily come alongside those of county agencies using D-Star. Caribou announced on its Facebook page earlier this month that it is working to establish the first D-Star repeater in northern Maine. Meanwhile, T.H. Merritt, KN4TJI, the group's president and co-founder, told a Bangor, Maine newspaper that the group has already met with local fire, police, and emergency medical services. He said that the Caribou Group is being created based on his experience as an emergency radio operator in Florida and has a membership of 17. That is expected to grow as more people sign up and begin studying for their ham radio licenses. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jim Dameron, N8PMW.
What's better than one QSO party? Try two that are going on in the Carolinas. Kevin Trotman, N5PRE, has the details.
In the United States, North and South Carolina are teaming up for a 2 QSO party weekend. On Saturday, February 26th, hams in South Carolina's 46 counties will be chasing contacts. There is a new category for hams operating portable from temporary stations activating in one or more counties. Expedition stations may move from county to county. On Sunday, February 27th, it's North Carolina's turn, and hams will be chasing contacts in that state's 100 counties. There are bonus points for working the NC4QP bonus station, as well as the call signs N4D, N4U, N4K, N4E, all the stations having suffixes that spell Duke in honor of Duke University, the pride of North Carolina. For details on both QSO parties, see the text version of this week's Newsline script at arnewsline.org. From beautiful Aiken, South Carolina, this is Kevin Trotman, N5PRE. For Amateur Radio Newsline.
If there was a workshop you wanted to attend at the virtual Ham Radio University conference but missed it, now's your chance to make up for lost time. Stephen Kinford, N8WB, tells us how.
Held on January 8th as a virtual conference, Ham Radio University may be over, but it's not gone. Videos of the day-long event have been uploaded to YouTube, where any number of workshops are available for viewing. Whether you couldn't attend HRU or weren't able to get to all the workshops you wanted, the HRU YouTube channel makes it easy to see what you missed. In addition to the introductory classes for DXing and the basics of HF operating, presenters also cover contesting, the various logging programs out there, parks on the air, the HF digital modes, and QRP operations, as well as several other topics covered in the videos. An assortment of workshops from previous years complete the channel. Ham Radio University played host to the ARRL New York City Long Island Section Convention. Find a link to the channel in the text for this week's newscast script at arnewsline.org. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Stephen Kinford, N8WB.
Congratulations to the organizers of the Voice of America 80th Anniversary Special Event Station. Operators logged 3,665 QSOs at stations W3V, W8O, and W4A, according to Jocelyn Bro, KD8VRX, VA2VRX of the Westchester Amateur Radio Association. He said that all digital cards have been sent and certificates will be emailed shortly. Paper QSLs are expected to be sent out sometime in March. In England, radio is about to embrace one digital mode yet unknown on the amateur bands, digital art. Jeremy Boot, G4NJH, has that story.
Hams in the UK have played a big role in celebrations of the BBC's centenary this year. The most recent special event station was heard on the 14th of February. As radio operators in Chelmsford, called QRZ, a station GB102MT, marked the historic first transmission from the Marconi Company's Ripple Hut there. The hut is now going digital with the help of an artist who is creating a digital model of it for inclusion at the Chelmsford Museum. The artist, Sean Fan, and the museum are calling the exhibit Forecast 22, the birth of British broadcasting. The virtual 3D model will include a replica of the two 2NT transmitter, as well as contents of the building. The exhibit opens in October. If you can't get to Chelmsford to take a step inside history, don't worry. You can take part in the Forecast 22 on your mobile phone, wherever in the world you might be. It's a different kind of digital DXing, but a fitting option for a celebration that changed the shape and sound of British broadcasting. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jeremy Boot, G4NJH.
Time for you to identify your station. We are the Amateur Radio Newsline, heard on bulletin stations around the world, including the K5 DUR repeater in Dallas, Texas, on Sundays at 7 p.m. local time.
And this is N1GMB with Newsline on Echolink.
There are big happenings planned for hams in New South Wales, Australia. Jason Daniels, VK2 LAW, brings us that report.
Mayhem, the largest amateur radio gathering in the Southern Hemisphere, has an equally large and ambitious agenda for Sunday the 1st of May. In addition to planning the usual activities such as pedestrian and mobile fox hunts, organisers from the Central Coast Amateur Radio Club are looking for lecturers to deliver talks on a variety of subjects. Each 45-minute presentation will be followed by no more than 15 minutes of questions and answers. Formerly known as Wyoming Field Day, it's run for over 60 years without a break, even through these COVID years. Mayhem is scheduled to be held at the customary location of the Wyong Racecourse. If you have a presentation you'd like to share with some of Australia's most enthusiastic radio amateurs, contact Cole, VK2ZCO, by emailing ccarc@ccarc.org.au and describe your proposed lecture. If you're looking to upgrade or even get your first licence, contact the Education Coordinator of the club at education@ccarc.org.au. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jason Daniels, VK2LAW.
If you're interested in learning more about setting up, hosting, and participating in a contact with the ISS through amateur radio on the International Space Station, you may want to attend an introductory webinar being hosted by ARIS. It will be held on UTC March 4th, which is the evening of March 3rd for attendees in North America. The webinar will help give schools, science centers, museums, and other institutions information they need to apply for a contact with the space crew. Registration for the seminar is required. Applications for a space crew contact should be submitted no later than the 31st of March. Such a contact would ideally draw a large number of attendees and participants and be included in an educational plan focusing on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Visit the ARIS USA website for more details. All contacts are being scheduled for January the 1st through June 30th of 2023. If certain important people in your life, maybe even the ones living under the same roof as you, constantly remind you that you have far too many radios, perhaps it's time you shared this story about a retired electrical engineer in England and his collection of more than 200 radios. Jeremy Boot, G4NJH, has all the details you'll need.
How many radios is too many? Norfolk retiree Richard Allen stopped counting when his collection reached 200. His shelves of crystal sets, antique transistor and valve radios is valued somewhere around £15,000 or $20,000 in US currency. His favorite radio is the one his late father bought in 1928 and listened to throughout World War II. His father had been an amateur radio operator and at one point even built his own transmitter, passed along his skill for repairing radios to his son, along with his massive radio collection. Richard, who is 85, has spent the past 50 years adding to that collection and restoring the non-functioning ones to good working order. He told the Daily Mail newspaper, "The value is in the eye of the beholder. About 90% of the radios work just fine. The other 10% are the ones that keep him busy." He told the newspaper, "If they were all working, I'd have nothing to do with my time." For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jeremy Booth, G4NJH.
In the world of DX, Corel OK2WM and Vlad OK2WX are on the air as 8Q7WM and 8Q7WX respectively from Inahura Island, AS013 in the Maldives until March 8th. Listen for them on 160, 80, and 40 meters where they will be using CW and sideband. Send QSLs to their home calls. Listen for Oliver, DJ5QW, who is using the call signs D4CW and D44DX from Sal Island, AF086, Cape Verde, until the 2nd of March. You can hear him on 80 through 10 meters where he is using CW and sideband, QSL via his home call sign, or by the DARC Bureau. Philippe EA4NF will be operating as EA8/EA4NF from Hierro Island, AF004, the smallest island of the Canary Islands. He will be on the air between March 4th and 6th using the FM and linear low Earth orbit satellites. He hopes to activate the very rare grids IL07 and IL17, QSL via Logbook of the World. Listen for Gildas, F6HMQ, and Michelle, F6GWV, operating as FG/F6HMQ and FG/F6GWV, respectively, from Guadeloupe until the 27th of March. Operating on the HF band's holiday style, they will be in the ARRL International DX sideband contest on March 5th and 6th and the CQ Worldwide WPX sideband contest on March 26th and 27th using the call sign TO3Z. For QSL information, visit QRZ.com. It's uncommon to mention boat anchor and waterfall in the same sentence, unless, of course, you're talking about the kind of boat anchor you drop to secure a seagoing vessel. Meet a relatively new ham who talks about boat anchors and waterfalls on dry land in his shack. Ralph Squillace, KK6ITB, brings us this week's final story.
Scott Baker, KK7CAI, is no stranger to tinkering in the shop. A list of his varied electronics projects populate his website, smbaker.com. So when he got his amateur radio license this past December, it was only natural that he wouldn't let his newly acquired Drake R4B receiver stay in the 1970s forever. He decided to build a pan adapter, a circuit to capture a wideband signal from the old tube radio receiver. With the help of an SDR dongle and his computer, his goal was to display all the transmissions on the band. The project wasn't without its hitches and glitches. As he writes on his blog, quote, "I had to install a hefty RF choke on the cable going to the SDR, or it would lock up whenever I transmit," end quote. There were other challenges along the way, too, but nothing he couldn't resolve. Now, the waterfall pours forth, and the old Drake has entered the 21st century. Scott says in his video, it's a useful visualization tool. Yes, it's a success, and more than that, it looks like this old boat anchor's ship has finally come in. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Ralph Squillace, KK6ITB.
With thanks to AMSAT, Eris USA, Bangor Daily News, Central Coast Amateur Radio Club, City Life Chelmsford, CQ Magazine, The Daily Mail, David BR, K7DB, the Erie, Pennsylvania News Times, Greg Mossop, G0DUB, Hackaday, Ham Radio University, IARU Region 1, Ohio Penn DX, Politico, QRZ.com, QSO Today, Reuters, Southgate Amateur Radio News, shortwaveradio.de, YouTube, and your listeners. That's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline. You can write to us at newsline@arnewsline.org. We remind our listeners that Amateur Radio Newsline is an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization that incurs expenses for its continued operation. If you wish to support us, please visit our website at arnewsline.org and know that we appreciate you all. For now, with Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team worldwide, I'm Neil Rapp, WB9VPG in Union, Kentucky, saying 7-3, and as always, we thank you for listening. Amateur Radio Newsline is copyright 2022, all rights reserved.
Okay, so that was Amateur Radio Newsline, and they have completed, so let's see what else we can find on here.
Welcome to the ARRL Audio News Server. This week's audio news report will begin shortly and pause periodically.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Rick Lindquist, WW1ME in Ellsworth, Maine, and this is ARRL Audio News for Friday, February 25th, 2022. ARRL headquarters is closed today because of the weather here in New England, and I just drove 150 miles through a snowstorm just to be with you. Happy to have you on board. Here's the news. The ARRL Board of Directors met in Windsor, Connecticut, January 21st and 22nd, and re-elected President Rick Roderick, K5UR, for a fourth term. He's been in office since 2016. One new face will be among the officers at the next ARRL Board of Directors meeting in July. The board elected John Sager, WJ7S, of Utah, to succeed Treasurer Rick Niswander, K7GM, on May 1st. Niswander had previously shared his decision to step down, having completed more than 10 years of distinguished service in the volunteer position. His most recent 2-year term as treasurer expired in January. The board re-elected him to continue to serve through April 30th, allowing a transition between Niswander and Treasurer-elect Sager. These remaining officers were re-elected. First Vice President Mike Raisbeck, K1TWF. Second Vice President Bob Valio, W6RGG. International Affairs Vice President Rod Stafford, W6ROD. Chief Executive Officer David Minster, NA2AA. And Chief Financial Officer Diane Middleton, W2DLM. 2 new members will fill openings on the ARRL Board of Directors Executive Committee, which acts in the board's stead between scheduled board meetings. Elected as new EC members were Dakota Division Director Bill Lippert, AC0W, and Pacific Division Director Kristen McIntyre, K6WX. Minutes of the January board meeting have been posted on the ARRL website. The FCC Enforcement Bureau has reissued an earlier enforcement advisory, and yes, you've heard this one before, that licensees in the amateur radio service and licensees and operators in the personal radio services are prohibited from using radios in those services to commit or facilitate criminal acts. No reason was given for releasing it again. The Enforcement Bureau said it recognizes that these services can be used for a wide range of permitted and socially beneficial purposes, including emergency communications and speech that is protected under the First Amendment. But amateur radio and personal radio service radios may not be used to commit or facilitate crimes.
This is ARRL Audio News, heard in Wakulla, Florida, Fridays at 4:30 p.m. on the 145.45 repeater, courtesy of the Sportsman Paradise Amateur Radio Club. Time now for the AMSAT report. Spain's IARU member society, URE, is readying EURSAT for launch in October 22. It will be based on the architecture of Genesis, ESAT-2, and Hades, but with a 32-bit computer. It will include a VU-FM repeater with FSK frames allowing voice contacts and digipeating of AX25 and APRS frames. URE is still selecting some additional payloads, but one that will be on board is the ability to play chess against the onboard computer. Moves will be sent using FSK frames from which the computer will answer in telemetry. Thanks to Southgate Amateur Radio News for this story. Happy 5th birthday to Naif 1, or EO88, launched in February 15th, 2017, and still going. Check it out if you have not had the opportunity to use it. The uplink is 435.015 to 435.045 megahertz, upper sideband. The downlink is 145.96 to 145.99 megahertz, lower sideband with an inverting transponder. The AMSAT report comes to us each week, courtesy of Bruce Page, KK5DO. A state of emergency was declared in Ukraine just prior to the Russian military invasion. Among other things, the February 24th decree from President Volodymyr Zelensky will remain in effect for at least 30 days and may be extended, as published on the website of the Verkhovna Rada, Ukraine's parliament. The state of emergency includes regulation of TV and radio activities and, quote, a ban on the operation of amateur radio transmitters for personal and collective use. The decree also imposes a ban on mass events and strikes and authorizes checking the documents of citizens and, if necessary, conducting searches. A curfew could also be imposed. The situation changes rapidly, IARU Region 1 Secretary Mats Espling, SM6EAN, said. IARU Region 1 continues to monitor developments. ARRL Life member Courtney Duncan, N5BF, will be the keynote speaker for the QSO Today Virtual Ham Expo on Saturday, March 12th in the QSO Today Virtual Ham Expo Auditorium. The semi-annual virtual ham radio gathering will be live March 12th and 13th. Tickets are now on sale at www.qsotodayhamexpo, all one word, .com. Duncan will discuss the importance of amateur radio and technical hobbies in advancing global technology. This edition of the QSO Today Virtual Ham Expo will showcase a wide range of topics with appeal to newcomers and veterans alike. It's a chance to update your amateur radio knowledge and get exposed to cutting-edge ham radio technology, as well as to practical operating and building techniques. Like a live ham radio convention or ham fest, the expo has presentations, exhibits, and state-of-the-art lounges for face-to-face interaction among participants. Some 60 ham radio luminaries will address a multitude of topics during the virtual event, from de-expeditions to Solar Cycle 25. ARRL Audio News is heard in Orofino, Idaho, Sundays at 7:30 p.m. on the 145.49 repeater, courtesy of the Clearwater Valley Amateur Radio Club. While many ham radio show visitors come for the flea market and a chance to chat with the various vendors, at least a few come to display new technology of the sort that will become mainstream in the amateur radio community going forward. Michelle Thompson, W5NYV, the CEO of Open Research Institute, attended Orlando Hamcation, also the 2022 ARRL National Convention, on February 10th through the 13th to promote the breadth of projects from ORI. She says the door is always open for additional participants. Visitors to the ORI booth were treated to an update on ORI's successful DVB S2X digital satellite television standard modem work and progress on the end-to-end demonstration of the entire satellite transponder chain. At Open Research Institute, she said, it doesn't work until it works over the air. The Phase 4 digital multiplexing transceiver satellite project is on budget, on track, and highly likely to succeed, she said. The return on investment is high. The M17 project booth, right next door to ORI's, represented the future of amateur radio, Thompson said. M17 is developing a new digital amateur radio protocol for data and voice. The February 24th edition of the ARRL letter has more details. The 5 megahertz newsletter has marked its 10th anniversary. The first edition of the 5 megahertz newsletter appeared in the autumn of 2011, heralding the growth of the new 60-meter band to serve as a propagation bridge between 40 and 80 meters. The newsletter, edited by Paul Gaskell, G4MWO, offers official news of new allocations and regulations, as well as feedback from operators on 60 meters. As a band, the U.S. authorized a group of experimental license operators to use 60 meters, while the U.K. discussed the issue, deciding that a number of channels could be feasible. UK hams had 5 3 kilohertz wide channels to start with. Similarly, the U.S. settled on 5 channels as well. Other countries followed suit, sometimes with channels, sometimes with a band, with a variety of power limits and modes. According to the newsletter, 85 countries currently have a presence on 60 meters. In 2017, the FCC invited comments on ARRL's petition for rulemaking to allocate a new contiguous secondary band at 5 megahertz to the amateur service. The FCC has not yet acted on the ARRL petition. Tad Cook, K7RA in Seattle, reports new sunspot groups appeared on February 17th, 19th, 20th, and 21st, but solar activity declined even though sunspots were seen covering the sun every day. The average daily sunspot number declined by 21 points from 75.3 last week to 54.3 in the February 17th through 23rd reporting week. Average daily solar flux was down nearly 15 points from 110.1 to 95.4. And that's ARRL Audio News for Friday, February 25th. For details on these and other amateur radio news stories, visit the ARRL webpage, www.arrl.org. Or better yet, subscribe to the ARRL letter, free every week in your inbox. Subscribe via your ARRL website member profile. Let us know if you're listening to ARRL Audio News with an email to audionews, one word, at arrl.org. This past week, we heard from Gary, KJ7TIS, in Nevada. For now, I'm Rick Lindquist, WW1ME, in snowy Ellsworth, Maine, saying 73, and we'll see you when we see you.
ARRL Audio News is produced by the American Radio Relay League, the National Association for Amateur Radio. For more information on amateur radio or the ARRL, visit us on the web at arrl.org. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter by searching for ARRL. If you have a question or comment about ARRL Audio News, email us at audionews@arrl.org. This program is copyright ARRL, all rights reserved. 73, and thanks for listening.
Alright, so that was the ARR news there. And I'm just trying to see if I messed my microphone up when I was changing the settings. And I'm just going to turn this up just a little bit here. And wait for the stream to catch up so I can see if the audio is working. Excuse me. So we have a New England conference here, but I checked into it earlier and there was nobody on. They break it down by General QSO, scheduled nets, and A Aries and Sky One. General QSO, I went in there earlier. And of course, nobody's talking. So we'll go out of that. And I was hoping we'd have more participation here. Actually, let me go back to my alarms. And we'll go back to this one. And I see all-star nodes there, but I don't see any Echolink stations. So we'll just sit here for a minute and see if we hear anybody. Alright, so the microphone is working. I don't know what else we could explore here today. No one's talking there. I've noticed on Echolink conferences, there's tons of them here, but nobody's ever talking. And if you look at the numbers, you'll see that not a lot of people are joined. You have 2 users in Freestar, but they're probably not talking. We come out to the New England ones. Never had good luck with these conferences. They're a great idea, but nobody's ever on them. Scan DMR server. Let's try that out. There's 2 people there. Welcome to Scan International, the server for Echolink DMR 546. Just as I figured, nobody's there. So I guess they have a new feature here. And it says, set your preferences below and call CQ. We'll try to connect you with another station also calling CQ. And this is a new feature of Echolink. I've never seen this before. So this must be something new that they added. And then they go through all the different countries and everything, and I guess it calls. And then you connect with somebody. So we'll have to try this feature someday. I think Greg would be interested in that. However, I don't think that Echolink software that he works uses that. So nobody there. Let's see what else we got down here. Skygate, Skynet. Anybody speak Yugoslavian? No? I feel like this one. This one's got 350 spaces, but I bet you they never fill it. Then you can listen to the Sky One and National Hurricane Nets. But I don't think we have any major storms going on. Other than that, the rest of this is basically similar to what it was before. Well, I guess with that, we'll end this stream for today. Echolink seems to have worked okay for the streaming, so this might be something that we might go back to again in the near future. So this is N1GMB signing off for today. Have yourself a good day and a good week, and we'll keep watching on the world situation. This is N1GMB